Hi, everybody. I'm here with Professor Sharon Press of Hamlin University School of Law. Hi, Sharon. And thanks so much for agreeing to join us. And I'm putting together this compilation of what I'm calling mediation stories, magical moments, and train wrecks. I'm kind of making that name up on the spot, but I think it's sticking. And I've asked you to share with us, if you could, a couple of mediation stories, one of which you experienced or saw a train wreck mediation, and I think we know what that looks like. I have a dozen stories going through my mind at that speed, and another that provides one of those magical moments that mediators live for, really. Just you choose which one you want to start with, like the good news or the bad news.
I'm going to start with the magical moment.
Go.
There are so many, and when you asked me to think of, the magical moment mediation, it was hard to figure out which one to tell.
I'm glad.
There's one that I particularly love, and it was when I was in Tallahassee, Florida, and working as a volunteer at a community mediation center, in addition to the work I was doing with the courts. And this particular mediation we did on a Saturday morning, and it was neighbors who were in a dispute, and they're in the intake, which similar to most community mediations, I hadn't done the intake. Someone else in the mediation community center had done the intake, and I was asked to mediate along with a colleague. And they specifically asked two of us because they wanted to have a biracial team of mediators, because the presenting issue was a couple one was African American and the other one was Caucasian, that were neighbors, and had been quite contentious coming into the mediation. So they show up at the mediation, and it had been the two women, the whites, who had been sort of at each other, but they each brought with them their spouses, and the Caucasian family brought their two children with them as well. And so it was a lot of people in the mediation. And
one of those crowded mediation scenes.
Yes. And so my colleague and I started the mediation, and there's always a question whether, how many people do you allow in the room, and do you only have the two people who are really the people? But when we decided, no, we were going to keep everybody in the room together and see how that went for a while. And they start and they're sharing their stories, and at one point, the two children who are at the mediation turn to their parents, their mother particularly, and say, "I am just horrified that you are not even listening to this other woman and everything that she's saying, and I just can't stand it one more second." And with that, they sort of picked up their stuff and they marched out of the mediation room. And there was this moment of silence.
Wow.
And then the two women looked at each other and said, "They're absolutely right. We need to listen to each other. And let me start again." And it changed the whole dynamic in the room, and it was a magical moment.
Wow. I still have goosebumps. I mean, as a father, I know how powerful a mirror my children hold up to me every moment of every day, and sometimes much more. Some moments are especially, and I just, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks. Now, if that's the power of your magical moment, I'm kind of scared of the power of your train wreck is going to totally derail me. Hit me.
Yeah, so my train wreck mediation is one that actually happened fairly recently, and it speaks to not trusting what you know to be the right thing to do in the moment. And so this was a situation where I was mediating for conciliation court, And it turned out, and the way that they work conciliation court here, you never know how many cases are going to be there, and how many people might be interested in mediation or not interested in mediation. As it turns out, on this particular day, we walked into the courtroom, and the referee was there, and there were 3 people in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's a docket of 10 to 20 cases.
Yeah.
And so, with each case having at least 2 people, and it was like, where is everybody? And so the referee made his opening and said, I want to give you the opportunity. It was obviously just one case that the people were both there, and it was 2 people on one side and one on the other. And I want to give you the opportunity, if you would like to try to mediate before I step in to hear it and make the decision. I'm happy for you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, yeah, we would like to try it. And so he said, okay, well, why don't you go with the mediator and check back with me in 15 minutes?
I was just thinking the referee thinks he or she is going to get the morning off.
So
yeah.
I should have said at that moment,
15 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor, but we are not going to be able to come back in 15 minutes and tell you anything because, as you think about it, a couple minutes for my opening statement, at least a few minutes apiece for their opening statements. What in the world are we going to know at that 15-minute point? So, but I did it. And so I left the room, and it was also an interesting case because it was an Asian woman and 2 African Americans. And right from the start, the Asian woman was very quiet in terms of her participation, even in the courtroom when the referee said, would you like to try mediation? And she was the defendant,
okay.
Not the plaintiff, but she was looking down and exhibiting, many of the characteristics that one would associate with someone from that cultural background. I don't think that I think she truly wanted to mediate.
Yeah.
However, she was much more subdued in that. So the people who brought the claim were the first ones to start, and there were 2 of them. And so after my opening statement and they're talking, we're already at 15.
Right, and they're just getting started. Right, yeah.
And now I'm starting to feel I need to say something to the referee. Now, there was someone observing the mediation, so I actually sent that person back and said to the referee, we're still at it, and I don't know anything. But what I found happening, and why I viewed this as a train wreck, was there was this voices in the back of my head saying, the time, waiting, and the other party hasn't even had an opportunity to talk yet, and now we're at 20 minutes, and so I said, well, in light of the fact that the referee is waiting, would it be okay if this other person, I used her name, had an opportunity to sort of share her thinking on it? And they said, yeah, absolutely fine. And the reality was that it was a very complicated case. And I am not at all sure that they would have reached a resolution. But boy, was there a lot that could have been explored, just in terms of their understanding of where each of them were coming from. But given the circumstances that we walked into the room, none of that was possible. And so from my perspective, it just was a train wreck. And it all stemmed from the fact that I totally missed the boat by having, I could have easily said to the referee, either, give us an hour.
Yeah.
Or don't bother.
Yeah. Or, or anything else. Like, this could take X time. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to take the morning off? Do you want to, and they can come back another day if this doesn't work out, or whatever it is.
Something. Anything. But what I did, which was say,
Okay. Well,
I proceed out of the room.
much as I appreciate you focusing the spotlight on your own fault in this situation, what I'm also hearing is kind of a lesson or just an experience is how when we are mediating, we have voices going on in our heads, and those are process voices. And sometimes we hope those are constructive process voices, like now I should ask a question, or now I need to be quiet and let this go on. I need to think about whether I should ask parties to separate or to stay together, or think about that. But sometimes it's like these externally imposed voices that could be, I'll see you back here in 15 minutes, or it could be, Mom, you promised you'd pick us up for soccer, and we're people just like anybody else, and we have these voices and these clocks going on, and other voices going on, and we need to deal with that just as mindfully as anyone else. I'm also imagining that parties might have had different clocks going on in their heads because they also heard the 15 minutes, and they heard you agree to that. So they might have like a question mark. What's going on? He said 15 minutes. She said 15 minutes. Meanwhile, it's just been them talking for 15 minutes. What should I be doing here?
Right.
Yeah. I can see the train wreck, so I'm not giving out grades here. Your magical moment was more magical than your train wreck wrecked. But yeah, I get it. And I also feel that it is I love that after no matter how many years of mediating, and I am not going to give that away in any way, but talking about myself, I find that after 15 years of mediating, I can still make a mistake in the room that afterwards I walk out and I say, that is like lesson number 1 and you missed it. How? Because there's something new about each and every time you walk into that room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is what I love about mediating.
So even our train wrecks keep us young and fresh and in the game.
Right. So and at least I have the good sense to realize that this was not going to go anywhere, and to say, so perhaps better referees waiting for you. You can do that if that's not,
which ultimately was a backup solution mechanism that you had waiting in the wings for you. But I'm not trying to make you feel better about stuff. I'm just saying. Sharon, thanks so much for sharing this. I really feel that when we tell stories about both the magic and the train wrecks, that it provides our students out there, with a more balanced and a real picture of mediation as it is. Of course, there's everything in the middle, but these are the really exciting ones to talk about one way or another. Thanks so much, Sharon.
My pleasure.